Good morning, fellow YouTubers. Welcome to the new Turkish politics, economy, and finance channel called Real Turkey. Turkish politics is always in turmoil, and I hope it will remain so forever, making us a lot of money out of YouTube revenues. This week, once again, I am with our regular guest, Ms. Guldem Atabay, who is an economist as well as political commentator. And do we have an interesting menu for you? Because Turkish political agenda changes not every week, but several times during the day. We're trying to catch up. Guldem, I suggest we start with Syria, where things are heating up again. Actually, we start with the east of Euphrates part of Syria. Over the week, we have read several reports, both in Turkish press, also in international press, for instance, Al Monitor, which covers Turkish affairs very closely, that Turkey is mobilizing its troops and hardware at the Syrian border with an eye to potentially entering the Kurdish-controlled zones northeast of Syria. Did you hear anything about that? Is that realistic, or is Mr. Erdogan simply putting pressure on Trump and the American Congress not to sanction Turkey for the purchase of S-400s?
Well, what we've seen is the pictures as well during the week that Turkish forces, the military forces, have been mobilizing. That's a fact that we know. But the thing is, these talks, these rumors, Turkey's role in Syria, in Middle East, it's balancing act between Russia and the U.S. administration or the U.S. government has been on a process that has been ongoing for some time. But given that Turkey was expelled from the F-35 fighter planes and that sanctions could be imposed further, depending on the congressional activities, I think this is another way of trying to keep Trump's support together with our President Erdogan, that sanctions should be delayed. And because what we have seen Erdogan do was, he was so sure about Trump's support to him that there will be no sanctions. And at the same time, he threatens the U.S. administration that Turkey could as well shut down the Incirlik base where the NATO forces and the U.S. forces have been using for long decades in Turkey, which will, of course, put some pressure on the U.S. presence in Middle East. So I think these are all going at the same parallelly. Turkey could as well start an operation in Syria. It has been doing so recently, but this is not a long-stretched war that Turkey has been entering or did enter in the past couple of years since the Syrian war started. So this could be a temporary action that could be giving a message to the U.S. administration. This could also be another step from our President Erdogan that he's trying to show the world that he's going more towards the Russian axis and abandoning the Western. And if there are further harsher sanctions against Turkey, this process could speed up another way of showing the world. Or at home, this could be another way of Erdogan managing the Turkish politics, where he's trying to keep the AKP group within contact around him. We know that there are cracks within the party. We know that he's being challenged by economy and political at the same time.
I don't want to overload our audience, which may not be familiar with Turkey's business and politics. I want to get back to the potentiality of a military campaign to the east of Euphrates. Obviously, there are a lot of Kurds in Turkey, and there is an American military presence, albeit small, but still a military presence, embedded within the Kurdish forces called YPG. And PYD, I believe, is their political entity. Supposing Turkey started a campaign which would hit civilian as well as military targets, I suppose, what would be the political repercussions, both at home and internationally?
I think just like what has been happening on the Cyprus front and in Syria in the past couple of years, Turkey will be criticized, will be urged to be careful not to hit the civilian targets. And there will be reaction on a global scale from the European Union side as well, which our relationships has soured already. And I don't think it will be a long one, it will be a temporary one. At home, the reaction could be again be limited because we know that the Turkish HDP, the Kurdish party, Kurdish Nationalist Party, let's say, is relatively weaker in terms of presence against Erdogan with their leadership in prison. But I don't think it's going to be a full-fledged war. Operations or such campaigns have been carried out in the past years, which Turkey is trying to take the control of northern Syria. Of course, this is like closely followed by the world, but nobody is really is blocking the Turkish forces from movements because, I mean, the Turkish military and the US military clashing with each other is not really wanted from all sides. So these are like careful operations, but this is more to do with Turkey's campaign or Turkey's wish to control the northern Syria and block it from forming a independent Kurdish government in the future, in the near or close future. At the same time, this is a message given to the globe, to the western side of the world, basically, that if Turkey is being pushed through the sanctions, through economic sanctions, things can change in the Middle East, that Turkey will act more closely with Syria, in Syria with Russia, which we know that the Russian government is having still closer ties with the remaining Syrian leadership in the country. So this is like power play, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's shell games.
Yes.
Let's think of a positive scenario, again, based on unconfirmed reports of the government being in contact with incarcerated PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan, and rumors of a new peace process with Kurds in Turkey and eventually with Syrian Kurds. Did you hear anything about that? Given AKP's ironclad alliance with nationalist MHP, do you see any prospects of returning to the peace process with Turkish Kurds, or any kind of thaw between Ankara and the Syrian Kurds?
Well, what we've seen before the second Istanbul or the Istanbul rerun, we've seen the Öcalan letter being released to public through the media close to AKP and the state media. And what we've seen that it's been kind of affecting the AKP votes negatively because it didn't really change the Kurdish votes in the Istanbul election rerun. And what we know that the AKP government in the past used this peace process as a tool to get leverage, to get more votes from the Kurdish sides. And as the AKP government was forced to turn to nationalist MHP or to a more nationalist stance, this peace process was just thrown away with the leaders locked in to the Turkish prisons. So I don't think currently these such rumors have any impact or reaction, positive reaction or trust from the Kurdish society living in Turkey. So this could be another way of getting prepared for a possible early elections in Turkey. I don't think it has any credible stance with the eyes of the Kurdish population and with the Turkish population as well, because we've seen that how it was just thrown away easily by the AKP government, and only after the elections could be. Yeah, previous ones.
Okay. We started from the east and going towards the west. Let's hit the Mediterranean waters. Now, today I just read that supposedly one of Turkish drill ships made a natural gas discovery where the reservoir may be as big as 170 billion cubic meters, which is, roughly 3 years of Turkey's consumption, but it's still sizable. But EU doesn't like that. It considers Greek Cypriots, the only sovereign of the island, and of course all the waters around the island as Greek Cypriot exclusive economic zone. So it levied some sanctions on Turkey, and our colorful foreign affairs minister says, isn't a penny. I'm trying to be polite here, so YouTube doesn't like me. It ain't worth,
Worthless.
But are they? I mean, one thing that struck me, and I'm not an expert on these issues, is that EU is suspending all high-level diplomatic contact. And I believe there are two issues we need to resolve with the EU very rapidly. A, this visa waiver, which would call for free circulation of Turkish business people in Europe. And two, negotiations to update and broaden the customs union, which is very important for the economy. Does that mean these two issues are dead? Where are we going with the EU?
I think everyone from the European Union to the US administration, they are all being careful in dealing with Turkey's current status of locking thorns or getting against the Western community in the world. So what they're not postponing, they're not killing the relationship, but they're just freezing the relationship with Turkey right now. So, and the AKP government knows this. And Turkey has some leverage, a very strong leverage, being a Middle Eastern country that has close ties to all the chaotic area and all the US and European Union interests in the region. So it's not that people or the European Union is going to kill Turkish negotiations, but more and more freezes are coming along the way. So this is another way of this visa issue and the customs unions renewal issue, another way of showing Turkey that along with this current line of administration, things will be on a big pause in the near term. So the customs union was another project that was going to be renewed and progressed within the next couple of years, but we didn't have that in the past decade. Another issue, as you said, the visa issue. The businessmen of Turkey, they never had this visa freedom. So it could be a very strong positive since we have strong economic relations with the European Union countries, the Euro area basically. But it's not going to really kill the business that Turkey is doing. These are just delays, important delays. And everyone is waiting to see the results of the next couple of years, whether AKP can continue with its current stance, getting closer with Russia and turning its back against the European or the Western community, or there'll be early elections and some form of change of political power within Turkey that can have more or that can renew its friendlier stance with the Western community. So up until we see that, I think they're all going to be playing the same ball, but they're not going to be killing the relationship with Turkey.
So it's freeze frame. Well, then get to this early elections issue, which you seem to be very eager to talk about, and give me hot flashes or cold spots. You also contribute to Para-Analiz and PA Intelligence, our sister websites, and you covered this new poll by PR, which is a respectable and rather impartial surveying agency about AKP voters. What do they think about the new party? Do you see any hope for Ali Babacan, who is accused of lacking any charisma or leadership skills from this poll?
Well, when we see the results, it's more than half of the Turkish population. They see a new central right or a right-wing political party as a necessity in the country. When we search for the AKP voter base, the potential of votes to be directed to this new political party stands around 18 to 20%, with the 8% of them already saying that yes, we can vote, and the rest
for Ali Babacan.
For a new political party on the right wing side.
Okay. I'm really sorry, just to correct you, but please, for our politically correct audience, do not use right wing unless you mean, ultra nationalist. Center.
Okay. Center right. Okay.
I mean, we're new at this business, so let's try to infuriate as few people as possible.
Not ultra-right, center-right political party, of course. And people say that once we see the party, some 18% can be voting for that new political center-right party in the future. So what we're seeing is the emergence of some movements within the center-right wing in Turkey, and we know that Ali Babacan has resigned. Whether he's as charismatic as Erdogan is to be seen, but maybe Turkey doesn't need such charisma in the near future, since we have that much of economic problems and international relationship problems. So having good relations with the Western community, which we know that Ali Babacan used to have when he was the economy minister, and he served as a short-term European Union minister for Turkey. His colleague or his leader or his mentor, Abdullah Gül, also had some strong relationships with the Western community as a former Turkish president, yes. And we know that he managed the economy very well during that time, since we had the IMF program as the main anchor, and he just didn't step outside of that program, holding on to fiscal austerity and disinflation program. So these are the things maybe Turkish citizens are looking for: more stability, less heart attacks, and more stable trend of currents within the country. So he might have a chance. And when you look at that, he has already resigned when he was offered a position as close to Erdogan or within the party. Advisor, yes. Yes, and he rejected that, and he just resigned from the party. Okay, I know it's not going to be easy for him to form a political party and make all these organizations around Turkey to establish such a profound political party. But I think it eventually is going to happen. The resignation was the first very tangible signal that things were becoming rather ready for that side. So we'll see. I mean, they're going to be forcing for maybe early elections. The government is trying to resist. So there's going to be further friction within the Turkish political scene in the near future, I guess.
And that's not all, viewers. We also have another former heavyweight, bigwig from AKP, Professor Davutoğlu, who invented neo-Ottomanism and zero problems with our neighbors, which turned into zero neighbors without problems policy. Yeah. He too is extremely unhappy with the way Erdogan manages the country. Something very interesting, actually sad, but rather routine happened in Turkey. In a YouTube channel, 3 journalists interviewed him. They also worked for Sputnik News, I understand. And soon as the streaming for the broadcast ended, Sputnik News fired all 3 of them. And Davutoğlu was understandably extremely angry about this transgression against free press. Has Davutoğlu made up his mind? Is he launching a new party? Does he stand a chance with at least the conservative Islamist wing of AKP party?
Well, what we know is from like last couple of weeks media reports that Babacan and Davutoğlu will not be working together within this new political party that is expected to emerge. Yes, Davutoğlu is set to start earlier than the others, the Babacan wing, let's say. So the polls were showing that he's going to be raising 2 to 3% support from the AKP ranks, because this neo-Ottomanism, this way of his positioning himself within the center right, is he has a very nationalistic stance, which is not really appreciated by the Kurdish society that's living in Turkey, who are living in Turkey. And but when we see the Sputnik's reaction, which we know is close to the Russian government, is that the AKP, naming our President Erdogan, perhaps is very uneasy about these kind of actions within the AKP. So he's, I don't want to use the word afraid, but he's trying to block all these such movements as of T0. He doesn't want him to progress. The reason being, we have switched to a presidential system, like having 2% loss, yes, is going to be impacting the Erdogan's winning or losing in the next round of elections.
Fresh memory, I think last time he won by 52% of the national vote. So if he were to lose 3%, it would go to the second round, and then only Lord knows.
Who knows? Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Exactly. This system that was designed to keep Erdogan in place, now combined with economic turmoil and political turmoil, that's a change of access from Western world to the Russian side of the world, I think is taking its toll on the AKP government, and is kind of strengthening or giving hope to the opposition parties within Turkey. So that's a very strange thing that's happening in Turkey right now. What was designed for Erdogan is now threatening our president. So things are going to be more like an action-like movie in Turkey in the near term, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much, Guldem Atabay. This concludes our weekly politics forecast. The Turkish Grand Assembly officially went on recess yesterday, having completed the 11th development program and the omnibus economy bill, but keep watching us, because Turkish politics, even without the assembly, will create enough excitement for all of us. This is Atilla Yesilada saying goodbye from this episode of Real Turkey.
Thank you.